Wealth taxes are overwhelmingly popular with, as you can probably guess, everybody but the ultra-wealthy.
Make Billionaires Pay Their Fair Share Act would establish a 5% annual wealth tax, which the two argue would raise trillions of dollars in revenue. Sanders said in a statement, quote, "We can no longer tolerate a corrupt tax code that enables billionaires to pay a lower tax rate than the average worker. In a democratic society, we cannot tolerate 60% of our people living paycheck to paycheck, struggling to pay for housing, food, and health care, while 938 billionaires have become 1.5 trillion richer." Ro Khanna echoed that sentiment, saying, quote, "We have a deep economic divide in this country. On one side, places like Silicon Valley are generating extreme wealth. On the other side, families are struggling to cover the cost of healthcare, housing, and basic needs."
This proposal is similar to a California ballot initiative that also seeks to impose a 5% tax on billionaires living in California. But Sanders and Khanna's bill takes it a step further, applying to all of the nearly 1,000 billionaires in the United States. The Washington Post, which is owned by billionaire Jeff Bezos, published an editorial piece on Tuesday criticizing the proposal. The article reads, in part, "Even for billionaires, a 5% tax on every asset they own would virtually wipe out any gains they make in a normal year. No one that rich keeps all their money sitting around in a checking account. They own real estate and they make long-term investments that might not pay out for years." Studies analyzing what other wealth tax have raised show they raise less than their boosters promise because people shift their behavior. Many billionaires would simply flee or find new ways to shield their holdings. Plenty of European countries already learned this lesson.
That article made its way to Sanders, who replied on X, "Surprise! The Jeff Bezos-owned Washington Post is against my 5% billionaire wealth tax. I wonder why. If enacted, Bezos would owe $12 billion in taxes, and an average family of four would receive a $12,000 direct payment. Poor Jeff would be left with just $224 billion to survive."
I want to ask you, because they do say people have fled to Florida and Texas. Does the city actually suffer in those times? It doesn't seem like millionaires leaving the city is the threat they think it is, I guess is what I'm getting at.
I mean, I'd say a couple of things. Look, you always want to be mindful of what's going to happen to the tax base. But I think the question that the mayor-elect Mamdani was asking was, well, working people are already fleeing New York. They're already having to leave New York because they can't afford to live here. And shouldn't we care about that too, right? And his campaign has been explicitly to make this a place where bus drivers, janitors, security guards, teachers, right? People who are kind of keeping the day-to-day running of the city where they have a chance as well. And I think that's the part of the conversation that we too often don't focus enough on, and that's what he's trying to solve for.
So Mayor Mamdani in New York City wants to raise the estate taxes from 16 to 50% and lower the number from $7.1 million to $750,000, which, by the way, who do you think this affects? New York City has 123 billionaires, average age 67 years old. What do you think a 67-year-old is thinking about? Estate planning, living trust, and guess who else is probably going to be talking to that daddy that's worth $2.8 billion or $6.9 billion? Their kids are saying, "Dad, we can't stay here if he's going to want to tax you this way." Number two, who else you think? The financial advisor at Goldman, Morgan, Merrill, whoever it is going to say, probably not a good idea for you to stay here. And last but not least, the actual companies, the firms, the Goldman, the investment bankers, the bigger companies are probably going to hold a meeting saying, what are we going to do with these 123 billionaires? That if they stay here and they die, the number we have that we're managing right now is going to split if this passes, of course. For it to pass, he's going to need Hochul, and they're right now feuding back and forth. But the reality of it is, the more language like this is spoken, California barely flinched at a 5% wealth tax, $1 trillion of wealth left. New York City, they're talking about something like this. Where do you think these 67-year-olds going to move? To a city called Palm Beach, Florida. If they flirt with it and if it passes.
When I ran for mayor, I said I was going to tax the rich. Well, today, we're taxing the rich. I'm thrilled to announce we've secured a pied-à-terre tax, the first in New York's history. This is an annual fee on luxury properties worth more than $5 million, whose owners do not live full-time in the city. Like for this penthouse, which hedge fund CEO Ken Griffin bought for $238 million. This pied-à-terre tax is specifically designed for the richest of the rich, those who store their wealth in New York City real estate, but who don't actually live here. But even so, they're able to reap the huge financial rewards of owning property in, dare I say, the greatest city in the world. And most of the time, these units are sitting empty, since again, they don't actually live here. This is a fundamentally unfair system that hurts working New Yorkers. Now, it's coming to an end. This tax will raise at least $500 million directly for the city. It'll help fund things like free childcare, cleaner streets, and safer neighborhoods. As mayor, I believe everyone has a role to play in contributing to our city, and some a little bit more than others.
To the surprise of absolutely nobody who is being serious, except maybe Patrick Bet-David or, I don't know, the corpse of Ayn Rand, billionaires are not actually leaving New York in vast numbers because their taxes have gone up slightly. Zohran Mamdani's pied-à-terre tax, which is an annual surcharge on second homes that are valued above $5 million, that's going to generate about at least $500 million per year for New York City, and realistically represents a drop in the ocean of the wealth accumulated by the people who will be paying it. We need to stop worrying about billionaires as though they're contributing and not extracting benefit from the communities, the people, and the prestige of the cities that they decide to live in or you spend a little bit of time in. But wealth taxes should only be a part of the solution to the massive inequality that we're currently facing. The tax loopholes, the incentives granted by the federal government are obscene and numerous. Republicans will never touch them, but when Democrats get control, we should look at how wealth taxes work and implement fairer and less cushy tax laws for the super rich across the board.